I want to talk to my optimists out there. So if you're an optimist, this video is absolutely for you. As a fellow optimist, I've had a pretty successful 38 years so far, and without convincing you to abandon optimism, I want to share with you my struggle that optimism has led me through in the title, right? Boundaries, worthlessness, regret. And optimism is powerful and great for business owners, but it's led me to a place where I've had to undo some things about my life. And that's why I want to do like a live stream version of this. Instead of just being honest with you guys as a teacher, I'd like to be more real with you, with my life experiences, and that way you guys can know some of these videos are no BS. I'm also really searching for my people here on YouTube, and so this is a better way to connect with you guys, I think. So if you're one of my people, feel free to say it in the chat, and let's keep this up, right? So to catch you up on optimism and the dangers of optimism. Hey, what's up, Ari? I grew up abused. A lot of you guys know that. And the way I adjusted to that abuse is I started to believe that I was like Teflon. That was what I said, like as an 11, 12-year-old kid, that nothing can get to me. I'm like Teflon. And I wore that like a badge of honor. And that was the beginning of like my optimistic journey. It was like a disassociative type of optimism, right? Anything bad happening in the world, hey, what's up, Cafe? Anything bad happening in the world, I would just like grit it, and defiantly I would get through stuff, right? And so I went to music school, dropped out, got into sales, went homeless, started a business. Now 300,000 YouTube subscribers later, tens of millions of dollars on Airbnb later, I've realized a few things. And I want to talk about regret in a way first, right? I used to say that I don't believe in regret. And I'm starting to regret that I've ever said that, which is why I think of why I did this video. Optimism will lead you to see the world a way that might be necessary, like it was for me when I was a kid and as a small business owner, right? There's pros and cons. We're gonna talk about the pros big time. But when you compartmentalize away your self-advocacy, your care for self because you're too optimistic to recognize that things aren't good for you or that you should change your path, that's when optimism is dangerous. And so like for this regret conversation, right? The fact that I said I used to not believe in regret, which means like if you're ever gonna regret something, then you did something that was without purpose, right? I used to have this super philosophy that everything you did was a lesson at bare minimum. But I now realize that I regret not being more discerning because I was saying that I will never regret anything I ever do in life. It's always going to be a lesson. That was reckless. It was like this form of like abandonment to me actually like caring what mattered to me. And this ties into the boundary side, right? When I was too strong for boundaries as a kid, and then I grew up, or as I was growing up, I started to exercise this kind of like I'm stronger than like my need for boundaries. So I would often be the person who gave more in a relationship. I'm the guy who always bought lunch, always bought dinner, even to this day. Like I don't think there's a tab I don't pick up, and it's been, 20 years that I've been doing that, since my first job at a factory. I think I've paid every check I can get my hands on with my friends or family or loved ones, whatever. But even more than just being a provider, or even more than just being an optimist and like looking on the bright side, even more than just being a problem solver, what happens when you don't have boundaries and that becomes a part of your identity, that you're stronger than boundaries, right? You're too strong to need them. Every obligation that you carry in life starts to take up more and more space inside of your identity. Your life becomes full of the things you're doing for your neighbor, for your mother, for your sister, for your friends, for society, right? You have all these obligations. You're carrying every torch. You're doing everything for everybody else because you're strong. And you don't ever hold anybody else accountable. You always make these adjustments. And you're keeping track of them because they're self-affirming. The fact that you can overcome these obstacles is why you're good and why you're strong. But then all of that takes up every bit of room in your brain, and you have none of you left, because your whole identity is how you're overcoming everybody else's stuff, everybody else's obligations. And it was this lack of boundaries that strangled my music. When I dropped out of music school, got into sales, started working 80-hour weeks, and just kind of like throwing my whole life into this company and doing everything they ever asked me to. They took full advantage of me back then. They played me out. I stopped writing music. And I finally bought a grand piano like a couple years ago, and I moved that thing into my bedroom now. By the way, I'm in an Airbnb of mine that I'm remodeling. You're going to see that video here soon. This one's ugly and it's going to be great, but in my bedroom there's a grand piano, so I'll play music again, trying to get back to things that matter to me. But lack of boundaries led to a lack of identity, right? And that lack of boundaries was because of a sense of worthlessness, right? My mother was like verbally, physically, and emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive. And she made us feel like we shouldn't be alive, right? She blamed us for everything. And because of that sense of worthlessness, I've always been validation seeking. And if you go back 10 years on this YouTube channel, almost 8 years on this YouTube channel, you'll see in some of my earlier videos that I had a huge chip on my shoulder. I'd give as much value as I could, but I'd always start the first minute and a half to try to tell you guys, I'm the best at Airbnb. No one else would ever give you this content for free because no one else knows it. I did a market research video and I went back and I watched it and I just like held my head in my hands. I'm like, I can't believe anybody would sit through an hour or like a minute and a half of my self-aggrandizing game talk of like how good I am. But that's what built this YouTube channel, was a sense of worthlessness and my need to prove myself. So yes, I gave more value than other creators, but I did it because I wanted people to know I was good and I wanted people to respect me as good at Airbnb. And I've done this all just to prove that I wasn't some piece of shit kid, like my mom said. And you can go back 5 or 6 years and you can see me try to talk you guys into believing that I'm good at this instead of just giving you the value, right? And that worthlessness has like eroded away my ability to have non-transactional relationships. This is another thing for you optimists. I'm speaking to you guys. You probably do this too. You give value and you believe that you can give value. And so we have these transactional relationships that you believe if you're not giving value to somebody else's life, then you're worthless, right? That you can't just exist and have people accept you, right? Your optimism is actually a shield for the fact that you also have a bunch of shame or you have imposter syndrome. So what do? You walk around the world optimistic, right? You believe that if you just believe in the best, then you're going to be safe, or that people won't reject you because you're positive, right? You're not even maybe a true optimist. You're doing it just because you don't want to get abandoned or left behind or get caught like having doubt, right? You don't want to get caught having doubt, so you are an optimist. And that worthlessness and the lack of boundaries, it lasted until maybe a couple years ago, right? Some of you guys know I took like 2-3 years off of my Airbnb business, and that was therapeutic. I was a workaholic. It was tough. And in that 2 years off, I will confess, I used psychedelics therapeutically. This is where this came from. But I was able to finally be mad at my father, of all people, right? Because I'll tell you guys, my mom was the abusive one. My mom was terrible. Threw me down the stairs. Can't tell you how many times I think that girl tried to kill me, right? But my dad wasn't around. My dad left. My mom probably was bad for my dad and he had to get out, right? But I finally was able to be mad at him for not protecting us from her, right? That was something that I had to go through. And yet this actually all plays to business, guys. This is still a business video in a lot of ways. My inability to be angry was an imbalance, right, that I developed, because to be angry means that somebody crossed your boundaries, right? And if you were angry that somebody crossed your boundaries, then you'd have to do something about it. But to be stronger than boundaries means you don't get angry, right? Now you don't have to do anything about it, no conflict, right? And so that was the like version of me that I created a long time ago. And it built a huge couple of businesses. You guys, if you are followers of this channel, you know, all of the Airbnb properties and everything that came from this is largely because of this compartmentalized version of me. So I want to tell you the pros and cons of optimism here. You should be optimistic, and you should be delusionally optimistic if you want to build a business, because I can tell you it worked for me. When things go wrong, people give up. For example, let's talk about the whys people build business. People build one to like make money, right? You'll see a lot of Airbnb hosts quitting lately because they're not making as much money as they used to, right? That was their reason for building a business, and when that reason is gone, they give up. And if you're an optimist, and maybe that was your reason, right? That was your reason, but you see everybody else is losing money, so you go through this like version of recreation as an Airbnb host or as a business owner if you're not a host. And you realize that everyone else is failing, and then something else can become important to you. You go, you know what? I can survive this, and I can transcend and be one of the few people left. You see an opportunity where everyone else sees failure. I've got a bunch of friends who got rid of their Airbnb properties because they're only making like $8,000 a month, like net on a property instead of the 14 that they were. Like they actually gave up for that. Like, which one of you would not like to have a passive property that makes like $5,000 or $6,000 a month, right? They still walked away because it just wasn't good enough anymore. And so optimists will ride that kind of stuff out. Optimists will find a way to do something on the principle that they don't give up, on the principle that there is a way, on the principle that there is a bright side somewhere. And to default to that is super powerful. But it's also lost me millions in the stock market. That delusional optimism, I thought I could trade. And I thought if I just tried harder trading, I could make money. And I punted $2 or $3 million in the last few years. Just punted in day trading. Terrible at it. So be careful. The delusional, optimistic approach doesn't work everywhere. It works for perseverance, but taking risks in the stock market isn't something you just persevere. That takes a lot more tenure and control. And that's where I think the dark side of optimism exists. And so if I can give you guys a little bit of life advice here, recognize why you're optimistic if you're secretly traumatized like me. It's been 38 years, and I'm finally going to talk to you guys about some weird stuff on this channel. I was traumatized into being an optimist and being perseverant, and I built some really cool businesses, but I had to get away from them to realize why I did it. And now I've built kind of a slightly healthy relationship with nihilism, a little bit of Nietzsche, if you guys read Nietzsche at all. And there's a really cool balance there, and I'm going to tell you guys about that when I'm more prepared in the future, but I'd like to not word salad you guys on a live stream. And in summary, I'm learning to exercise boundaries, and that is making room for me to really know what I want. It's the coolest thing, because before I would just automatically accept everybody else's agenda, everybody else's needs. Now that I'm saying no to things and cutting things away, I can actually hear my own voice go, oh, this would be really exciting. I want to do that. I don't feel nearly as burned out. I'm not procrastinating as much by having some boundaries. And by saying no and realizing that people still come back around, that people don't abandon you because you said no, that worthlessness that is also ingrained in there is also starting to soothe itself. Because to lose your boundaries because you feel worthless and you're afraid of abandonment, you can never understand the truth that people will stick around if you self-advocate. And so having boundaries has helped me solve my worthiness issue. And hopefully I don't hit you guys with 2 minutes of, oh, I'm the best, you gotta believe me rhetoric like I used to do in my old videos. And if you've been here that long, thanks for dealing with that. And the regret side, that's the kind of wildly esoteric part of this, right? There's so much I would change now that I'm starting to heal my way through, but that's the part that I think that's the dead end loop there. To go back and then actually regret, I no longer believe that having regret is bad. That was a really toxic, compartmentalization of trying to control my future or whatever. So I do think you can regret things because they help guide you. It's like a compass, right? Hindsight's 20/20, and if you can't regret anything, your compass is broken. But I don't think I should. I don't really think I should regret that I didn't want to regret anything. If that makes sense, I think we should be more discerning with our future. I think regret can be a wasted errand. The last thing we want is to die full of regret. There's a movie I watched where there's a quote that said, regret piles up around us like books we've never read or books we forgot to read or something like that. And all we can do is really stave off as many of those regrets as possible, I think. And we need to check in with ourselves. We need to be kinder to ourselves. All the money that I made in Airbnb, the tens of millions and everything else, it wouldn't really matter if I died young of a heart attack because I was never able to get angry about things and I just penned up all that emotion and just my heart popped one day. That'd be pretty tragic, right? And if you guys are like me, grew up super poor and you thought that money was gonna make life easier, in a way it does, right? I'm not gonna lie to you. Money definitely makes things easier, but it's not a cure-all. You don't get just wear money and then you're healed. Your blood pressure won't go down. You won't have a better relationship with your family. You won't have a better relationship with yourself. All it will do is create a cushion that when you do what I did and you just let the world fall apart for a while so you can heal, if you've got a savings account, you can go dunk into the abyss for 6 months and still have some cash to pay your bills while you go through your dark night of the soul. So yeah, get rich and then get healed would be my advice to you guys. I'm going to try to be more real with you instead of just cool on video, instead of just being honest about Airbnb tips and business stuff. Because a lot of you guys want to be successful. You're watching YouTube videos because you want to change your life, but everybody's got this membrane of screen between the creator and the audience, and you don't know what exactly to trust. right? I've seen so many videos that blow my mind that they're actually fake, that they're skits, and I'm just like, wow, am I just that old that I can't tell the difference? But we are so full of like preparatory content, prepared content, and how can you really connect with somebody to actually get traction, to know that somebody actually did something and how they did it? If everything has to be a top 10 list, if everything has to be a transformation video, if everything has to be a man on the street, you know what I'm saying? So if I can be raw and give you some stuff, even if it's not as prepared and I waste a little bit of your time, I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna try to be honest. And if the couple minutes I'm rambling, I am ADHD, please forgive me. If you like these types of formats, please let me know in the comments, and let me know what time of the day you might like me to go live, because maybe I'll just go live for 5 or 10 minutes every day and prepare a thought about what changed my life or maybe what ruined it for a while, so I can warn you guys, ghost of Christmas yet to come, to not do the mistakes that I've made. I think I tell you a lot about what works, and what we all hide is the stuff that doesn't. And I want to do more of that for you guys. So I love you all. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. Yeah, I'm excited. Nearly 300,000 subs. It's crazy. I remember when I had 1,000 subs. I didn't think I would be here. So you guys are awesome. I'm going to work on this. This place is going to be purple when I'm done with it, by the way. I've got this really cool purple and rose gold idea. And I'll make a fancy video for you guys on that. Love you guys. I'm gonna go get dinner. I'll see you guys in the comments. Good night.